Herb Cohen. Today I want to talk about eating disorders. One striking similarity that eating disorders has to substance abuse is the poor outcomes we see in treatment of eating disorders. I think that they're probably very, very parallel in the poverty of success in treatment. And I know that people who suffer with eating disorders suffer a long time before they settle into treatment that helps them move beyond these challenges. And there's a lot of suffering involved. There's a lot of parallel between these two areas of treatment. We see that in substance abuse, we blame the substance. We blame alcohol. We blame the drugs. We also work on treating the behavior of using, the addictive behavior, instead of understanding the deeper causal reasons why people use as an avenue to healing. And understanding that it has nothing to do with the substance. So I can treat people with heroin or alcohol addiction using EMDR and hypnotherapy, and we're working directly on an implicit memory system, and we can literally switch dependency off with no withdrawal. I can't do that with eating disorders because eating disorders have an element, a quality that they're merged with that is distinctly different from someone who's using heroin or alcohol. And that is the element of dissociation. People dissociate when they're engaging in maladaptive eating. A maladaptive eating disorder such as restricting or bulimia or binge eating are all acts of disconnect from the self, from the present moment. And this disconnect is really a schism in consciousness that most people with eating disorders are not even aware of is taking place, let alone the practitioner who is sitting before them trying to figure out how to treat this. What we see in addiction treatment is that management of symptoms, treating the behavior. In eating disorder rehab programs, we also see blaming the food. We see adding calories up, having highly caloric supervised meals. And I've worked with people who told me they'd have a panic attack if I put a piece of cheesecake in front of them. Something so high caloric would send them into an absolute panic. And imagine having them sit down for a highly, highly caloric meal 3 times a day and supervised and being forced to do this. This is something that is not going to sustain when they leave that rehab. People will go back to avoiding those calories because it's creating such terror and anxiety within them. So, and it's not about the food. And we see that the success rate of people leaving eating disorder programs where there are managed meals is about the same as in drug treatment. You know, it's pretty much maybe a 20% success rate, and 80% or higher go back to their eating disorder. There are others that work with systems around support around managing the behavior. They're costly. They involve a lot of people to act as a team, a treatment team, and helping this person manage the behavior. But instead of managing the behavior, why don't we just go to the cause? So we have to understand that in drug treatment, the cause is almost always trauma or attachment misattachment, and that misattachment is trauma, misattachment trauma. So when I treat substance abuse addiction, part of it is switching off dependency, and the other part is switching off the trauma. So we have to work through the trauma history and relieve all the implicit memory storage related to such in order to really resolve that addiction if we do it through an EMDR pathway. There are other pathways to treat addiction as well that also include treating trauma. And there are other tools that can be used as well. However, that seems to be the most efficacious way, or one of the more efficacious ways. One of the things that blocks that from happening is drugs that are used to treat addiction, such as naltrexone. Naltrexone seems to block the switch. So I tried to flick a switch that switches off dependency. Somehow this happens in the EMDR process. Naltrexone blocks that from happening. I don't understand why, and there's absolutely zero research into this because no one will do research into this because it's not about making money, so they won't do the research. But naltrexone and naltrexone related drugs such as Suboxone prevent addiction from being switched off. So this is a theory I have. My experience of people who are on Suboxone are resistant to EMDR treatment for their addiction, and so I summarize that. However, the crueler part of Suboxone is that it's partially naltrexone, which is a blockade of opiates, and partially opiate. So the opiate part they get addicted to, and the cruel thing is that the naltrexone part prevents that dependency from being switched off. So they're on a drug then to treat heroin addiction, let's say, that now they have no way of getting off of. It absolutely prevents that. Now there is naltrexone in drugs that help people control their appetite, and that also will get in the way of EMDR work. So I advise people to stay away from naltrexone-based medications. When I work with eating disorders, one of the things that we have to do is develop an awareness of the dissociated part of this problem. Because we're working with dissociation, if we don't honor and respect the dissociation, if we don't work with the dissociation, we're not going to make any progress. The tricky thing here is that I can do EMDR with someone with an eating disorder and they will respond as if they're processing like anyone else, except that they're really not. They're really dissociated. So they may be, we maybe use it to treat binge eating disorder, and they're processing their binge and they're actually in a dissociated state. It looks like they're relating to me, but they're not. They're in a dissociated state and they're actually checked out even though they're acting as though they're here. So developing an awareness with the client to understand how they're losing awareness helps us with this, so they start to see that they're checking out as they go into their eating disorder. They start to notice the checking out part of themselves. And this is a great way, by bringing awareness into this behavior, we help to sort of resolve some of the dissociation and work with the dissociation instead of having the dissociation work against us. We start to go into whether there's parts that are holding the dissociation, or we go into the avoidance itself. And we have to target what that relationship is. So most people with eating disorders have relationships with food, food not being the bad guy here, but the relationship with food is that food represents shame or love. And it's this distorted view of nurturing. The problem is that all eating disorders are an attachment disorder. So the nurturing, the love nurturing that should have come never happened, and the relationship to food as a substitute source of nurturing kicked in, and this is the next thing people grabbed onto, and it's either an avoidant or a avoidant relationship with food, or it's a avoidant relationship with emotions such as shame or love. Those are two things that are very, very toxic ideas to someone with an eating disorder. And that's what we have to go to the source of and heal. We have to heal the attachment wounds that are running so deep and are also dissociated. So this is the real deep challenge and roadmap to successfully treating eating disorders, and it can take a while. It's not anything that has a rapid resolution to it. If I had that, I would be talking about that instead, trust me. I hope this is helpful. It's just some bullet points that I wanted to point out and help people who may be struggling with an eating disorder get some idea of what they need to wrestle with, as there's such a wide variety of approaches to eating disorders out there. It's confusing, and we can feel hopeless after a while, after getting enough treatment failure under our belts. So I don't want people to feel that. I want people to know that there is a pathway to resolve those disorders. I hope this is helpful to you. If you like this video, hit like so other people will be attracted to see it. If you feel that you need to comment, I welcome comments.